Okay, welcome back to the Wayne Madsen Report, the Sunday Roundup. 2 hours. We'll be with you every Sunday night from 8 to 10 Eastern Time. And our first show with the new format is tonight. And if you'd like to call into the program, the toll-free number is 800-313-9443. That's 800-313-9443. I want to report on something that was on WMR this past week, something very interesting that popped up on the radar screen, and it has to do with avatars. Now, you'll remember if you saw the movie or heard about the movie last year, Avatar was about science fiction, of course, about the creation of human avatars, but let me suggest to you that this is not science fiction anymore. In the digital world, avatars are now real, and avatars, everyone who uses the internet now has an avatar. Let's just to remind you of the Avatar science fiction movie, I want to play this short clip which talks about the avatars, if we can play this clip.
You are not in Kansas anymore. You are on Pandora, ladies and gentlemen.
This is your avatar, Mitch.
Well, it's not just science fiction. The Department of Homeland Security has been working for several years now on something called the Avatar Identity Program. Any user of the internet has an avatar, a second life, and this avatar program collects everything you do on the web, and I mean everything. You go to certain websites, the avatar collects it. You are engaged in chats online, the avatar collects it. You visit porn sites, the avatar collects that information. And the Department of Homeland Security, all they have to do is query your avatar, because your avatar is your snitch. It's your online alter ego, but it's also the government snitch. And it exists. Obviously not in the form we saw in a sci-fi movie about avatars, but avatars are real, and this is just another extension of the surveillance society, which is endemic in the United States and other countries now. The next big battle is going to be over the internet and what people do on the internet. The WikiLeaks, whether you believe WikiLeaks is an operation run by the intelligence services or not, it's quite clear that WikiLeaks and then follow-on attacks by a group called Anonymous is taking the battle for civil liberties into the digital realm, and the powers that run this world dearly want to curtail the power of the internet. We saw the internet used quite successfully in the revolutions in Tunisia, in Egypt, not so much in Libya. It wasn't as wired as some of these other countries, but Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and some other countries, definitely the internet is playing a role, and there are certain vested interests that want to ensure that the same control they have over television, radio, newspapers, etc., extends over to the internet. So here we have Dr. Cass Sunstein, President Obama's information czar, the head of the office, White House Office of Information Regulatory Affairs, pushing for cognitive infiltration, cognitive dissidence on the internet, agents provocateurs, disruptors. We have them on websites, on chat rooms. They call into radio programs. These people are basically those who have been tasked to disrupt through the internet and through membership in various organizations, including, I might add, the 9/11 Truth Movement. Their goal is to disrupt, to take people off subject. And we've seen it time and time again taking place, and we should all beware not only of these infiltrators, but also of our own avatars, because our avatars, as I say, are reporting on everything we do on the web. If you want to engage in a private conversation with someone, you better meet them in person. You better make sure you're under no surveillance when you meet them in person. That's how I meet my sources and contacts that are sensitive. And I think we all need to understand the type of society and environment we're living in today and take precautions against our own avatars and those disruptors and infiltrators who, by the way, have a lot of money behind them. There are certain groups here in Washington that were set up solely for the purpose of disrupting legitimate organizations and legitimate movements. How these people can sleep at night, I don't know, but, they get plenty of money to carry out their tasking. And let's face it, some of these people are just basic dirt bags. These people, they don't have any sort of social consciousness about them. They have no loyalty to anyone but their own bank accounts, and that's the type. They are the types of people that are being used by the elitists, the oligarchs, to disrupt what I think is happening around the world, and that is people are waking up. They are becoming aware of what's going on. They're communicating with other similarly interested groups and people around the world, and this is a real threat to the people that run the planet. And the people that run the planet have the means and the funding to ensure that their continued way of life goes on, and they will stop at nothing, absolutely nothing, to ensure that the status quo is maintained. But as we see dictator after dictator dropping like flies in the Middle East and North Africa, that's going to essentially spread to Africa and Asia and Europe, and eventually, as we're seeing already in some states around this country, to North America as well. So the line has been drawn in the sand. And we know right now we have to determine who's on our side and who isn't, because that's going to be the most critical element of what's basically happening, and we're heading towards a final showdown between the people and the small elite who have governed the people for so many years. And again, I can't stress the point that programs like the Avatar Identity Program are solely intended to disrupt our means of organizing and counteracting these oligarchical and elitist influences around the world. We have a special guest tonight, and in the way of introduction, many of you probably know about Helen Thomas, the long-serving White House correspondent who was fired from her job because she dared speak the truth about the influence of the Israel lobby in Washington, D.C. and over our foreign policy. She was fired after many years of service, starting with President Kennedy in the White House. But some of you may not know her predecessor, who had been, before Helen Thomas, the longest-serving White House correspondent, another woman, reporter named Sarah McClendon, who actually started covering the White House when Franklin D. Roosevelt was president. Now, Sarah died some years ago after Ari Fleischer managed to pull her press pass. Sound familiar? Exactly. The ruling elite do not like feisty old ladies like Sarah McClendon and Helen Thomas biting them in the tail at every turn. And the way to eliminate those quote-unquote problems is merely to restrict their access, their media credentials. This is the tool that the oligarchs use to hide what they're really doing from independent-minded journalists. Access in Washington, D.C. is a primary asset, and if you can eliminate somebody's press access or credentials to cover, say, the White House or the Pentagon or the State Department or Congress, you're essentially depriving them of their means to gain access to elected officials and other appointed officials, and that means they are totally ineffective at doing their jobs. And if you yank somebody's access, you're basically ensuring that they're going to be fired from their jobs as journalists. And although the freedom of the press is enshrined in the First Amendment, that why should that stop the elitists that run this town? They've gone after every other right in the First Amendment, so why not the press? And the press certainly hasn't been immune to this type of pressure. But tonight we're going to have as our guest someone who worked for quite a number of years with Sarah McClendon, John Edward Hurley, a longtime Washington observer of political developments, and has done a lot of investigations in his own right on everything, starting back with the Iran-Contra scandal. So we'll be having John Edward Hurley join us tonight, and we'll be talking about some of the things that's has happened in Washington over the years, and some things that are bubbling right now under the surface. So we will be back with our guest, John Edward Hurley, right after this short break. This is Wayne Madsen from Washington.